Terry, before we do the minutes, I'd like to suggest that we move the item that a lot of people are interested in up earlier after the monitoring reports.
Any objections to changing the agenda order?
Are you making that motion, or are you?
I'm just
Doesn't
making a
require
suggestion.
motion, I don't believe. You
Well,
could take it as a motion.
Yeah, because we're changing the agenda, it should be.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by John to move item J in new business up to the first item in new business. Second by, I'm sorry.
Letter A is the recognition of youth apprenticeship.
The question was, would we like to allow recognition of youth apprenticeship prior to our discussion on the reentry plan?
Yes.
So move it from item J on our new business to behind item A. So there's a motion by Pete, and a second by John, a second by Pete, excuse me. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That move in the restructure of the agenda is passed. Moving on, we have two sets of minutes this evening to review.
Terry, do I need to do any kind of minutes? I'll take them here.
Jill is taking them
Yeah,
here.
have to worry. Gotcha.
You have most of the evening off.
All right.
Our first set of minutes is from the regular board meeting on Monday, April 12th, 2021. Any changes, amendments, corrections to these minutes? Hearing none, we'll look for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Education on Monday, April 12th, 2021. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Pete. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Minutes are approved. Our second set of minutes come from the special meeting of the board of Monday, April 26, 2021. Any changes, amendments, corrections to these minutes? Yes.
I'm just looking for clarification on number, would be 3D.
I'm sorry,
Number 3D,
3D.
it involves the ESSER funds and the motion that we passed there. I'm a little unclear. The motion, the wording seems a little bit unclear. I thought we passed a motion for $475,000 maximum for the positions in yellow. But I didn't add it up in the course of the meeting, but adding it up after the meeting, it was about double that because the numbers on the right-hand column were for 1 year and the ESSER funds are for 2 years. So I don't know what we actually passed. What I thought I was passing is a cap of 470. What I thought I was voting on is a cap of 475 maximum over 2 years for those positions.
So you're correct, that was what it was represented to be, but that does not seem to be what was actually done. And I too share my misgivings about that because that was not the way it was represented. We were represented with a $475,000 spending item, not a spending item nearly double that. And I think we need to go back and revisit that.
I guess the question is, it seems like a contradictory thing in the course of it needs to be clarified as to, is it double 475 or is it we only authorized 1 year of hires?
Can I talk to it, or?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the conversation, which we all were engaged in on, the conversation of ESSERs, with a litany of positions that were presented for consideration. And as noted, the items in the yellow were potential new positions to support student loss, close the gap within our student services to support education. As well, in conversation with that, if I remember correctly, and everyone can join in on this, is that there were multiple funding fashions in which many of these positions could be addressed within the budget building process, noting that some of the positions were new, okay, to existing budget. Some of the positions were within our current budget development, within some of the reading specialist positions, and others were an additional observation and planning for future services for students, and I'll say specifically within, say, the high school social studies. We had a dialogue and conversation about class size and referencing how class sizes have exceeded into large numbers, and the idea to bring that down, create more offerings for students within. So I can understand the point of view of authorizing that dollar amount for the positions that were noted, but I also remember conversations saying that each of these individual positions were evaluated on an annual basis. And then within an annual basis, that any position could be potentially extended for that next year, or as we currently do when we evaluate positions, if student need do not drive a position, typically through budget development, that position gets reevaluated. Or potentially repurposed to a different avenue. So having that annual review of all of our positions is a critical element. But again, I can see how you may have thought that that dollar amount potentially could have been for 2 years, but looking at that salary, that far right column, adding them up, that was intended to be for that 1 year assessment if we choose to use the funds from ESSER solely for those new positions. I don't know if that adds any clarity to the.
Well,
the
we
thought.
just, my point was just to clarify the minutes as to what was intended.
Sure.
And correct them.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So the board can take that flexibility.
It's a policy discussion we need to have about ESSER, and that should be for a different agenda item, this is just the minutes.
And I think we need some clarity whether what was approved is a 1 year, $475,000 spending item, or if we approved a 2 year contract for those positions. Because there's some vagueness between what was presented and what actually was presented to be passed. And I don't think that we're comfortable making a commitment on 2 years of that at around 900,000. When what we really discussed was 475,000. And it sure feels like we weren't told exactly what we were getting.
I would lean on the other board members for perspective as well. I respect your opinion that what we shared, John.
Well, listening to John and Chris, I understand, I didn't see it that way when we were talking, but I understand where they're coming from. So I think what we probably should do is approve the minutes with the exception of that item, and then somehow get some clarification and review on that so that it's more precise. I see what he means on the minutes, how it's a little vague on our minutes, which happens a lot because you can't take verbatim wording on a topic that took us 45 minutes to talk about. So I think we approve the minutes with that exception, and then we get some clarification on it.
But I'm not sure if we all voted on it and it was read and reread, like several times we all voted on it. I'm not sure if we can just change it now.
Well, we're not changing the vote. We're getting clarification on the discussion and on the minutes. And if it comes up that something it doesn't smell right, or it's not what we thought it was, then we can go back and we would have to have a whole nother discussion and a different vote to amend that portion. But reviewing the minutes doesn't change the vote that we took.
I didn't think that we voted for a 2-year time period. During the entire conversation, these numbers that are highlighted in yellow were annual salaries, all right? And at one point, there was a lot of conversation about, whether you can present this to somebody as a 2-year position or a 1-year position. And Terry made a very good point. And that was that every one of our employees, staff members that have contracts, have 1-year contracts. And everybody is reviewed annually to see if their position will continue for the following year. And so the $475,000 was for these positions for 1 year. Because we spent a lot of time talking about that. And even though the ESSER funds are available for 2 years, because we do not write contracts that exceed 1 year, these are 1-year positions.
And so I think I still think it's the best option to approve the minutes, except for that section, and then get that
That's fine.
clarification.
Scott asked for some input,
Right.
and that was the number and the time period that we were focusing on with that conversation.
I think it would have been very confusing if they would have presented all of these numbers as 2 years. That's why they laid them out, so that we could see what each position was costing annually. So I think it would be very confusing if they had laid it out differently.
But
Well, I apologize for being confused. but-
that's fine. You're
I
fine.
see where you're coming from.
I think what I want to ask the board at this point, do we have a consensus that this was $475,000, these positions for 1 year?
See, and I took it was 1.9 minus that, and we still had 1.4 to allocate. Because the ESSER funds were
Right.
talked about into 2
I
years.
think the question is not the amount, at this
Right.
point, it's the question, was this a yearly contract?
Mhm.
Which I think as Mark had noted, I noted to all of us, all of our staff work on single-year contracts.
Yeah, and I think that it would benefit us all if the minutes reflected
That's
that.
what you're asking.
I'm 6 feet away. I'm following the rules. As I said I would.
So, do we have consensus on amending our minutes? Or do we want to set this aside? Does anybody not recall it being a year now that we've had some recollection of our thoughts? After a rather
Well,
late.
I agree with Pete. I'll make a motion that we pass the minutes minus this item and address it in a later agenda item or a later.
What are we going to address though? The vote has been taken.
With the
What we're really trying to do is clarify the time frame.
And that's
It's not whether we come back and vote for ESSER, that's done.
right.
Those positions have been passed.
But the minutes should reflect that, and we should have it written down so that everybody sees that that's what the minutes
But
clarify.
that's an amendment to the minutes that says 475, include approve enhanced staffing allocations for 1 year through ESSER 2 and 3 funds to include all areas highlighted in yellow totaling $475,000.
If I thought it was a $1 million 2-year commitment, I never would have voted for it. I would have.
I don't think that's what anybody's saying, Chris. I think we are in agreement that it's $475,000 for 1 year.
So are you okay with?
These are 1-year contracts.
So as long as everybody's okay with the idea that
We're not.
we spend these.
Every position is 1 year. Regardless, every position is a 1-year position.
The contract itself, John, will be stated as 1 year.
Well, let's reflect that in the minutes.
So
That's
that's what just,
That's what I'm
Terry
saying.
just read.
It's clarity.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying, John.
So
So,
what Terry just read, if you're okay with that, we can amend the minutes right now.
I'm okay with that.
do you have,
So just the one, for one.
for 1 year.
I feel like I was
So,
talked
Mr.
into
Wager?
it.
Mr. Wager? Do you mind if I inject something?
No,
no,
no.
Oh, okay.
at this point, Bill, that's not allowed. So, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from April 26th, I believe?
Yep.
Monday, April 26th, of the Special Board of Education meeting to approve the amended minutes as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Pete, seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Opposed here.
One opposition?
Opposed.
Thank you, Chris.
Opposed.
Yes, one opposed. Moving on, we'll move into reports this evening.
Okay, we'll start with our calendar for the month of May. First of all, thank you, community members, for sharing your thoughts this evening. Appreciate your feedback, and our board does as well. The process through current future decision makings is they'll be processing between now and the start of the school year. So it is very much appreciated to hear your voice within your topics. Specifically to the month of May, reflecting on our calendar this evening, we'll have our May regular board meeting followed by 2 committee meetings this week, where we will have our compensation committee and facilities on Wednesday and Thursday of this week, 4 and 4:30 respectively. And then our special Board of Ed meeting will take place on May 24th. The month of May is typically graduation time for most high schools in the state of Wisconsin, and ours is very much in line with that, as graduation is slated for May 27th, with our rain date on the 28th. Looking forward to the month of June, as soon as the school year ends, as we've already begun planning for next year. And the more very important decisions that will come forward for our preparation. Our regular board meeting in the month of June takes place on June 14th, followed by our special meeting on June 28th. Any questions on any calendar items at the current time? Okay, now turning into my district administrative report. This evening we have 2 individuals that are with us this evening that I'd like to recognize for their special service, not only to our district, but as well their parent company in which they support Tyson Food Industries. This past year, Tyson Foods was a proud supporter, as they continually have been historically, with the school district of New London through many grant scholarship opportunities for our classroom teachers in the amount of upwards of $30,000. So throughout this past year, our classroom teachers put forth recommendations for many grants in which they could buy additional resources to support their learning environments, not only for themselves, but their students and families as well. And we just can't thank Tyson enough for their generosity, not only for our students, but our families, but our school community as well. Tyson is a tremendous employer within our local region, which is great for our students and our families and greater community, both in New London and throughout our generalized area. So this evening, we have Mandy Wills and Mark Gillespie are with us. Mandy, you have to help me out on your position, but my wife formerly worked there, and I think I know this must be, but not 100% sure. A QX Valley Stream Manager, and then as well, Mark Gillespie is an FSQA. Is that Food Safety Quality Assurance?
Yeah.
All right, I
And
got
Mark actually left for the evening. He didn't know it was going to take quite this long.
it. Okay, all right.
So he had left, but yes, I'm Mandy. I'm with Tyson Foods. I'm a value stream manager at the Tyson plant here. It was amazing following all the stories on Facebook. I personally followed them and shared them with our facility. Sent them out in emails. We made poster boards of all the donations and what the teachers did with it. So it was absolutely remarkable. what you guys were able to do with the funding.
Absolutely. And I know, Danielle, you were part of that and working with our staff. Any comments on the process when you facilitated?
It was a phenomenal process. What we did for your presentation is we highlighted you in the Bulldog Bulletin and we did a high blast for you so that you would be able to promote that as well. Local support, and it allows our students and our staff to be able to do those little things that are just personal and unique touches to the classroom. So thank you.
It was really cool, you guys. The teachers got everything from supplies to furniture. I mean, the possibilities of what they wanted to do with the money was endless, and they really embraced it. So thank you.
Thank you. Very much appreciated. To follow up on recognition of our, my report as well. The academic year recognition in which the month of May represents, as stated, our high school graduation is at the end of the month, but as well our grade level and students as they move from elementary to middle school to high school, and those grade level transitions as they seek to continue to finish strong, as comments are, to prepare not only for the summer but for the next school year. You know, collectively as a school district, we have much to be proud of. We truly do. Tonight's feedback gives good perspective on some of the challenges and the opinions of where we're at, which are appreciated, and I think we're all very much knowing. If it were to me, this mask, hey, I'd like to get rid of it as well. And I think we will in very short order time with the respect of the board and the decision-making that comes forward. Set that aside, we don't want to underscore our accomplishments of this past year as a school community and what our students and families have continued to demonstrate again, as they have in past years this year and as we move forward. So my sincere thanks and appreciation to students and families for their effort throughout the academic year. Next, I'd like to recognize an accomplishment of our board, and Board of Education and the school district. Recently, the New London Chamber of Commerce had their annual meeting in celebration where they recognize different institutions and businesses throughout the area. Our district was recognized in nominations of 3 different categories, among other businesses within the New London area, specifically in community service, excellence and innovation, and quality of life. Now, to be nominated for such consideration, local businesses and individuals from our community that are part of the chamber put the individuals they feel might be represented that can represent the award. So as a district, we were recognized for the 3 nominations in those 3 areas. We didn't ultimately win the category, but we were among the elite colleagues of our peers around the area for the services that our district has supported the New London Chamber. And our B212 extra effort degree work for our district. This past year, we've highlighted several individuals and groups of individuals that have given that extra effort gone above, as most everyone does on a monthly basis and a daily basis. And this is really harder than what it thinks when I reflect on, who to recognize in this setting. But it's due time to recognize our administrative team at all levels this past year, as they've worked with the students, worked with families, worked with community, worked with Tyson Foods, our businesses within the area, to sustain and continue and build upon those relationships throughout the year to make our good district great. And so to our administrative team, thank you to your support, not only from our Board of Ed and our staff, as well as our students and families. And then lastly, this past week, May 3rd through the 7th, was Staff Teacher Appreciation. It's recognized not only in our district, but throughout the country. And at your workstation today, there was an umbrella. All of our staff received that, just a simple token of appreciation that they can use their Bulldog pride to shed the light of rain when appropriate, when outside. So board members, please enjoy, take the sign of our generosity to you, and every time you choose to open it up, it'll reflect our district in a positive way. So thank you to our staff as well for their continued efforts to make New London School District great. Any questions for me on the report?
Yes, Scott, this is just a follow-up on the ESSER fund situation. In doing research on ESSER, it came to me that there was a letter that went out from DPI to all administrators from one of the assistant directors of the DPI. And I meant to bring it with me, but I left it at home sitting on my desk. But it states in there that prior to spending any ESSER funds, or prior to presenting a grant, the LEA must seek public input.
Right.
Are you aware of that letter?
Yes.
Are you aware of
Yep,
that
I am.
requirement?
You bet I am.
And I'm just a little bit concerned that we did spend some of that without.
But we haven't spent the dime yet, Chris.
Well, we haven't, we've, made an intention and we've listed some jobs, but,
Yep, we're very well aware of it.
okay. So you'll be telling us about plans
Sure.
for public input.
Absolutely. Anything else? Okay, thank
Hearing
you.
none, thank you. Moving on to business services, Mr. Markwood.
Good evening, board members. Two items in the report tonight. One is picture of some concrete work that Mr. Grunsel's class did last week. If some of you may have been in and out of high school, his classes have been working very hard at preparing those bridge walkways that were there that were rotting and needed to be replaced. It's also wider so it can have better snow removal. So it's a great hands-on project for Joe and his class to work on. And we're so thankful that his kids are learning a valuable trait and trade that they can take on, into the future. The second item is work that the board has approved, but just a note that starting next week at Parkview Elementary, there will be some exterior columns that will be replaced. That was a board-approved project last spring, but as they waited till the winter was finished to work on that, so it will match the other columns that were replaced last summer. And if you've been in the school or seen outside of school, there was some interior and exterior doors that were replaced. That is most of the contingency funds that were approved. There's very little work from that project left to go. We're still looking at potential solutions to that canopy, and that was something else that the board members and facility committee talked about looking at as we move through. Were there any other questions about items in my report?
Hearing none, we'll move on to pupil services.
This evening, Candy Martin is not able to be with us tonight. Daniel Seegers will note her report.
Good evening. The overarching theme of this time is that our assessment window has closed. So in both Candy's report as well as mine, you'll see an overview of the fact that our access for ELL's window has completed. This is the assessment that shows their ability to communicate in English rather than their first language. Also, the students who qualify for an alternative assessment, who take the dynamic learning map, have also completed their assessments. And later in my report, you see that the forward exam and the ACT are also wrapping up. So just an update on that. In addition, we have the sources of strength training highlighted. We were able to fight to get our middle school into that program. Traditionally done at the high school level, we felt it was valuable to push down into the middle levels to support social emotional learning, as well as advocacy for students to have a trusted adult in their lives. So that was something that we put forth during our latest professional development. Can I go right into the next?
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll go right on to teaching and learning.
Teaching and learning, again, highlighted the professional development on April 23rd. Not only did we have the time to do the sources of strength, but we also grounded ourselves back into core instruction, especially in mathematics. We had the demonstration from our publisher to show us some of the enhancements that are in the program and also get back to our core instruction in mathematics. This was held for K through 6. And then PLCs were held in all the rest of our buildings to make sure that we are talking about the instruction and the need for adjustment as we look for the rest of our students to continue wrapping up the year, and then also as we move forward to next year. We also have highlights on our job fair. The last time we met, we were very excited about the April 16th job fair and second senior exit interviews Again, such a testament to New London about the fact that Bulldog Pride is not just in our walls, but also in our community. Those senior exit interviews were welcomed by our community, as well as great communication from our job partners to share how well our students did in that participation. So thanks so much for everybody who made that happen. And just 2 shout outs, summer school, although the digital enrollment is closed, we are still taking paper copies for anyone who is interested in participating in summer school. And then also registration, although it seems a ways away, just a reminder to families to start making sure that their communication information in Skyward is accurate, because our registration will continue to be virtual as it was with last year. So registration is really just going into family access and checking off those digital forms to make sure that everything is accurate with communication. And then with that staggered start that was approved by the board, a lot of the orientation and open house things we'll take care of through the school year once we get started. Questions about anything?
Any questions?
Not so much a question, but a comment that I really want to thank the staff for going through with the career and technical job fair, and thank Mr. Yurtu for initiating that a number of years ago, the way it's in its present form. And I think in resisting the temptation to say, oh, this is COVID, we better pass on it this year, because these kids, their seniors are only seniors once, and it was a robust thing. And in spite of some of the colleges and whatnot that decided that they thought it was unsafe to come, I thought it was done very, very well. And I really, I really want to thank you guys for doing that.
Well, I talked to a lot of vendors and they were ecstatic to be there. They were so happy we were having it. So I think that's good too.
Thank you.
So, moving along, vouchers and receipts this evening, Mr. Mark White.
Yes, a couple vouchers for the evening, a couple I just noted in the director report. As I mentioned, some of the both projects were completed. You can see those items highlighted in the vouchers. I talked about the intermediate middle school gas and high school gas bill. In the last director report, I shared that it would be coming forward in one of our invoices. It's just showing that that was paid in the last month. We also have some staff Chromebooks that were ordered last spring that finally arrived. And then there's progress payments for Somerville for the intermediate middle school project work. And then the one receipt highlight for the month is we have been 100% reimbursed for our ESSER 1 funding. Any other questions?
Hearing no questions, we'll look for a motion to approve expenditures in the amount of $1,538,488.40 as per the list of May 6, 2021. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made by John. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
By Pete. We'll have a roll call, please.
Katie Batten. Yes. Steve Buzzcliff.
Yes.
Mark Grossman.
Yes.
John Heidemann.
Yes.
Chris Martenson.
Yes.
Tina Rockdashel.
Yes.
Terry Wade.
Yes. Also like to note record receipts from the receipt register of May 6, 2021 in the amount of $522,042.99. Move into new business at this point in time. Begin with the recognition of youth apprentice students.
This evening, board member, Mr. Brian Yerke, our high school principal, will make a presentation of some students that recently completed their youth apprenticeship program and some of the accomplishments that they've been recognized with over their past high school career. Mr. Yerke.
I know Grace Folks and Sarah Heidemann I want to thank you for keeping that in the agenda order so they can get home and do homework if they choose to do. I also want to thank the board for continuing the tradition of acknowledging our graduating seniors who have completed their youth apprenticeship program. So Grace Folks and Sarah Heidemann have both completed their youth apprenticeship program. And for those in the audience and the board who may not be familiar with the the Youth Apprenticeship Program. It's a 1 or 2 year program that partners qualified juniors and seniors with local business and industry professionals. Students get paid, gain hands-on learning with a business mentor while completing a credit-earning classroom course. They also get out of school early from time to time. A typical schedule, maybe a student goes to school until 11:30, and then they go to their work placement or vice versa. Some students pull a full schedule, do a 7-8 hour day, and then still go to their job placement and get the required hours in to complete their youth apprenticeship program. They get paid, they get school credit, and they get great experience learning industry skills. An added benefit of this program is often students will leave with a permanent position in a great company, business, or industry. And another added benefit is sometimes students find out they don't ever want to go back to that employment again. They find quickly the jobs they like, industries they like, or a profession they don't necessarily want to pursue. So it's been a great experience for our students. Just a couple thank yous to some of our employers this year. We had Thomas Nolan Realty, St. Joseph's, Northland Electric Services, Bolt Construction, Meyer Construction, Cork and Glass, Titan Industries, Miller Electric, Wolf River Community Bank, Wolf River Veterinary Clinic, Mid-State Tree Service, Steel King, Creative Metals, the Dan Madden Farm, and Reister and Schnell. This year we have 14 current students going through the Youth Apprenticeship Program. Next year we have 40 interested students with 28 local businesses already signed on to take our students. It's really been a beneficial program for our school and community. We have wonderful business partners, not only in New London, but both to the east and west of us, who have opened their arms to our students and have really done a great job mentoring our kids. A large thanks to our students like Grace and Sarah, who have committed to this adult responsibility of both school and going to work and carrying that professionalism into their place of employment. Having the character, the integrity, the intelligence to manage those positions while balancing school is not an easy thing to do, and it takes a special individual to balance that. I'm going to turn it over to Grace and Sarah. They'll talk briefly about their experience and then be open to any questions you might have. You guys rock, paper, scissors to see who goes first. Congratulations, Grace.
I'm Grace Falks. I am a senior at the high school, and I worked at St. Joe's for a year now this month. I started last year at this time as a junior, and I worked as a CNA before I got my CNA license. I was able to gain so much experience from working since I was 17, and not a lot of people get that. I was able to work before I took my test and everything, and I passed my test and everything on the first try, which is pretty awesome. Once I took my test and I passed it, I got a job right into St. Joe's, and then I was a full-time CNA. I had a full 6-hour day at school, and then I would go to work every day practically during the week, and sometimes weekends on Saturdays. I was able to work in memory care, assisted living, and the nursing home, all attached to St. Joe's. The Monarch Meadows and Trinity Terrace are both attached. So that was also a lasting experience that I got to have since I was younger. And with all that experience and a year experience from now, I was offered a job at AMC for the summer, and I will be working as a CNA in the med-surg unit throughout college. So that is really awesome, and I wouldn't be able to have that without the opportunity of the youth apprenticeship and being able to work for a year from my age of 17. So I think it was really cool, and definitely would recommend it to younger people who are looking into doing the whole CNA medical field type thing. My goal is to be a travel nurse after college, and this has really given me a lot of perspective on, yeah, I really want to do this. And yeah, it can be hard sometimes, but it really also can be cool. And yeah, it was really awesome, and I learned so much, and the opportunities that were given to me were just ridiculous, and it was so cool. And yeah, lastly, I'd just like to thank you guys. Being a whole senior and everything, I'd like to thank you for letting me have a senior year, letting me have what I can have this year, having the graduation and prom and everything that we can have with all this ruckus going on. But yes, thank you for everything.
Hi, I'm Sarah Heidemann. I have a youth apprenticeship through Nolan Sales in Marion. It's really an auction company. My job is to basically take pictures and advertise stuff that they have at their office. I also write down item description, prices, and communicate with potential buyers, along with cleaning houses and preparing them for auctions. This opportunity has not only been helpful, but also given me experience that I will use in my future of being a realtor. I've also been able to spread my name to other real estate companies like O'Connor Realty and Coldwell Banker. Due partially to the apprenticeship program and my hard work, I continue to receive job offers from individuals who have heard about my success from past customers. By participating in the youth apprenticeship program, I have gained experience and firsthand knowledge even before graduating high school, and I am grateful that the youth apprenticeship program exists, and I encourage everyone to take advantage of this huge opportunity. If anybody needs me to sell anything for them, hit me up.
What's the commission?
Every day Sarah walks into school, I go, well, what'd you sell and who'd you sell it to? And it's usually a long list of people. So any questions for these two young ladies? Well, again, we appreciate supporting the program, allowing us to recognize our seniors who are graduating. They'll get their certificate from the youth apprenticeship program when they graduate. So again,
Brian, I just
congratulations.
have a quick question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Nope.
Is 40 a lot? Is that exceptional, or is it just because 14 was not many this year?
40 is double
Is that
our
double?
normal.
Okay.
This year, we struggled to find employers with COVID who were willing to go through and have students come into the building.
Okay.
The employers have a checklist of work they have to do, so it is not an easy task for an employer to take a student in because they have a checklist of skills. They're guaranteeing us that they're going to teach our students. So not every employer is willing to do it, and we understand that, so we really do appreciate those who are willing to take the time to mentor and teach and work with high school students. So it's been a great program for us.
Well, that's awesome.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Can I get a picture of you two in front of the success desk, please?
You taking that with Mark?
Yes,
Run away.
What do I do with my hands?
You just get closer.
Nobody ever knows.
There you go. You're good. We don't have to actually read this out. Perfect. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, girls.
Hi, Grace.
Moving on in our agenda is we amended to take up the 2020-2021 academic school year reentry plan.
The board members, again, for a monthly report, the trend data is presented from the 14 and 7-day trend. And as we continue to not see positive movement in the sense of rising cases within our district and county, which is a great thing. So thus then from there, recommendation is to continue on with the current face-to-face instruction, 4K through grade 12, and only adjust if we have to, based on employee shortages or significant outbreak of some other cause. Additionally, board members, within from follow-up discussions from our previous meeting was the idea of a survey to gather community feedback in reference to next year and what will be forthcoming. And so I included just a draft for the board to consider, to look at, and give feedback for. And within there, it's just a few questions that present concepts for our community to respond to. The first, how safe do you feel when your children attend school in person over this past year and as we move forward? From very safe to very unsafe, and gather that feedback. Some open-ended questions where we look for a very specific feedback, where 1 to 2 things you believe the district's doing well at, and that can go in a lot of different areas. So giving that idea or opportunity for individuals to respond. And then as well, on the opposite side, what are 1 to 2 things that you believe the district needs to improve on, as we are on a continual journey of improvement and allowing that feedback to be gathered. And then specifically, as we move into summer school 2021, and on the topic of masking and face coverings, which we've been discussing and engaging into, the question reads, do you feel parent, guardians, children returning to the 2021 summer school programming schedule should be given a choice to wear mask face covering when engaged in indoor learning instruction when unable to follow social distancing guidelines? So a very simple question, asking that if the person feels there should be choice in the sense of what choice means is that if I choose to wear a mask, okay, great. If I choose not to wear a mask, that would be okay as well. So looking to gather feedback there. And then the next question takes it one step further to the beginning of the 2021-2022 academic year, which starts in early September. The same thing, looking for feedback on mask choice when we start the academic year in September. And then the second to last question is in preparation for the 21-22 academic year, should the district place additional emphasis on, and Chris, you bring up a really good point on that document that I received from Deputy Superintendent from the DPI on communicating with the community on areas of potential focus points. Because the noted items that are listed are just that. They're focused items that are relevant to potential extra spending that the district will have to make decisions on as we move forward. From access to curriculum and student programming, assessment, career and technical education, co-curriculars, English literacy, math literacy, facilities, loss of learning, in the academic recovery support, mental health services for students and our school community, and then also an item on special populations as we talk about homelessness, foster care, our English language learners and special education. And then lastly, on the idea of technology and the district infrastructure, because we know over the past year and some now, technology has always been not necessarily a struggle for the district, but a struggle for some families, but also a struggle for that connectivity within. So we'll look for individuals to give us their top 5 priorities. And with that information, we should be able to gauge and range where people feel that our efforts should be focused in on. Some may be surprises, some may be, hey, we're kind of on that same lane or lens as we look forward. And then the last item to consider is something that Mr. Wagner presented in our first survey at the beginning of the year, which is always a great thing to look at, us as a school community and our branding of who we are. How likely are you to recommend the school district of New London to your colleagues, friends, or peers? All right, with obviously looking for a net promoter score of a 9 or 10, which tells us, hey, we are doing the things that we need to do to promote our district and to bring people in. Not everybody brings a 9 or 10 score, and that's okay, but we learn from those and identify areas that to move forward. So this is a starting point for the board to consider. I'm glad our community members are here this evening to hear the feedback on this survey. So the timing of when it would go out is probably our next discussion, and then if there are other appropriate questions that would need to be put together to help to assist.
Can I bring up a question on a survey? I was on the DHS site, and there's a link of a recent paper that was published April 19th from PhDs from the Wisconsin Institute for Public Policy and Service, and also the Medical College of Wisconsin. The surveys have been happening a lot to parents, but I thought it was really interesting that students themselves haven't really been asked. And I thought, maybe parents are in charge of up to your 5th or 6th grader, but have we checked in with our kids at all and gotten their perspective? Because it's this, and these guys are doctors, but I thought this one particular paragraph was super key. Many groups have a stake in policies and programs that impact our youth: parents, guardians, school boards, administrators, teachers, staff, government officials, and medical providers, and generally your community at large. But the students themselves are also a key stakeholder group. While all you other people have been making these decisions, they're assumed to be surrogates or proxies for the voices. But to date, there has been almost zero contact with our adolescents' perspectives. And capturing their voices and inputs would provide valuable data to make your policy. And I just thought, have we checked in with them?
Sure. I can ask Mr. Yerke. I know throughout the year you've had multiple, Google surveys that you've sent out to staff periodically. We'd like to say maybe a couple examples of what's been shared?
Well, I meet with what we call our Principal Advisory Council. It's 32 students who signed up to be on this council, and they come from all different areas. We have freshmen through senior, 2.0 students, 4.0 students, athletes, non-athletes. We meet with them monthly. In the last couple of months, it's twice a month. And their duty is to go out to the student body and get feedback. I meet with them. We go over everything from curriculum to activities to what mental health and SEL supports they need. They then, provide me with that information either through Jamboard or surveys. And then we use that as our high school team to help drive our decision making with what is best for our kids.
I was just thinking, as long as you're sending a survey, would it make sense for efficiency to also send one to the kids that maybe they don't feel comfortable telling Owen, whatever?
Absolutely.
But as long as we're doing a survey.
The important thing with that survey would be what you're going to do with those results.
Yeah. And you have to be like age appropriate questions, like even if you just did 3.
Because I'm not going to touch the mask issue. It's not my decision. So for me to say, what would you like to do with masks, kids? I don't get to make that decision.
Right. I think it was more like planning for next year, as long as it's too late for this year. But how have they done? What would they like to see? And maybe it's easy, as long as we're doing one survey, to send out another one.
Well,
The
it's
kids.
not- I guess, I think it's a good idea as long as we can keep it anonymous what the kids say.
Right, that's what I meant.
The last thing I want to happen is a fight between mom and kids or dad and kids.
Right.
I don't care if I wear a mask, and the parents are, opposed to it, or vice versa. As long as we can keep it separate and we just look at the stats that come in, and that there's no bleed over,
Right.
so we don't create any.
And like I said, you'd have to pick an age. Like, I wouldn't want my 5th grader answering it.
Right.
Like the high school kids.
Yeah, just the high
Yeah.
school kids. I don't know if we've gotten their honest feedback, and maybe they don't want to tell their peers, but as long as we're doing a survey, maybe it makes sense to send out a second one to the kids.
I like that idea.
That's a school exercise.
I mean, you could even do the summer. I mean, it doesn't have to be enacted on immediately. I think masks would be, you wouldn't even ask that, but maybe you do ask it for next year. Like, do you want high schoolers to have the option? Or, I don't know.
My hope is we don't even have to deal with that question
Right.
closer to school.
Right.
It's not even gonna be an issue. But doesn't hurt to ask.
Well, and their lives have been upended. And I thought Grace had good perspective that she's so happy we're having prom and graduation. That's great to hear.
So board members, is there direction as far as the potential timing of this survey going out? I know that feedback from some of our community were to bring it out as soon as possible. Some of our board feedback was at the end of the academic year as we prepare for next year. So just the direction and guidance to what the board's intention is to see when something like this would go on.
I think Katie's comments about we're 3 weeks out from finishing this year now. By the time we finalize the survey and get it out, it will be the end of the year, in my opinion. It's probably more of a forward-looking piece, I would hope. Although there certainly is some input from what we've done to say, how did that work? But I think this helps us more in looking forward than it does looking back. We can't go and change the decisions we made 6 months ago.
Chris had his hand up.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Gary, I would say that from talking to quite a few parents, they're making their decision now or soon about what to do next fall. And a lot of it hinges on how we handle this stuff. And our numbers are going in the wrong direction for open enrollment out, for people signing up for other alternatives, voucher schools, et cetera. And some of those decisions have to be made early on for parents to get in line for those positions. So
I'm not saying this will take all summer, Chris. I'm just
no, I'm not
thinking
talking
that
about summer.
the end of the month is
Nice.
probably an appropriate time to launch. And by the time we analyze the data, it'll be a week or so. So sometime in June, if we launch this in the end of May, we will have our results.
I mean, if that's what the board wants to do, but my suggestion would be sooner the better. I mean, there's no
I'm
reason.
not saying that, Chris.
After
I
this.
think it'll take that time to put this together. This is a draft. It's the first look at it. This is the first time any of the board has seen it. So
Well,
I think it's fair to
I guess
say, take a minute to review it and make sure that we've got it tight. I'll give you an example. I look at facilities. What does facilities mean? It could be anything. So I think you have to have some set of what are we talking about when we say facilities? Are we talking about new buildings? Are we talking about enhanced air filtration systems or enhanced heating systems? I think there's a little bit of work still has to be done on this. It won't take a lengthy period of time, but it's not ready to go out right now as far as I'm concerned. I still see things that, as somebody who made his living this way, need to be refined a little bit.
I think what Chris is saying, and I'm out of the community a ton at kids stuff, I think parents want an end game. Like, can we give them some end game? Because there's not much going on with cases, and the kids we've known are not spreading it at school. I think our teachers who want to get vaccinated are vaccinated. Like, all these kids have had the field goal post moved all year, and I had a senior last year too. But I just think we need to give them some end game, and what would that be?
I don't disagree with that, Katie. I think we'll give them the end game as fast as we can.
Like, what are we shooting for?
Well, that's, the last thing I want to do is say, this is how we're going to do it, and then something catastrophic happens, and then we got to change it, because we all know
Which
how
is something
traumatic.
catastrophic happens.
I
we
have the
to
floor,
change
John, I
rules.
have the floor.
John, let him finish, please.
So, and I think that was more traumatic to the kids, that when you have that shock, and to the parents, and all of a sudden, you know, we were planning this, and now we got to do this. So I think we start looking at it, the survey, a good start. I think the end of the month, we should have it finalized and vote on it our next meeting so that we can get it out. And so we start getting the data, but there is parents do have to make a decision. And middle of August is too late. So we got to shoot for sooner than that for our plan. But to start talking about it any sooner before graduation or anything, I heard a lot of things tonight that were spoken about that I hadn't heard before, and I'm not sure where that information is coming from. Like the vaccination thing, that's, my feeling is we have no business telling people what to do medically. So I don't know where that's coming from, but like the rest of the reentry plan for next year, hopefully we can get to a point where there is no reentry plan. We just go back to school like we used to.
So what is that? Is that county activity then? Like, what is that?
What
Like the reentry plan, is it just something we start over with, or do you follow that matrix, or like, do you go on?
that's our decision.
What county guy
We
says?
developed our reentry plan last year, which is a lot of the procedural things that everybody's doing right now. So that's very much of that was an original thought of our district. And the board, had feedback on that, as well as our planning team. By mid-July-ish, we had kind of our arms around as to what that was going to look like, and they continued to refine. And if I remember, in mid-August or mid-July, then the field changed a little bit there with some masking expectations that was issued upon from the state. So that really didn't change much of our plan, just maybe just that one piece, the masking piece specifically. So through this time, our reentry plan, there are many things that we're doing now that we may not change, as far as process and procedure that have been, but I'll say a good uptick in our efficiencies in how we process with students and families. I don't see some of them going away, but I think the big question is when would we feel confident making the decision to say, hey, we're not wearing masks when they come back to school? And I guess that's something the board will have to decide on. If it's the July regular meeting as a goal, well, then maybe that's our goal, to say that by the July regular meeting, we feel that the board is ready to make that statement, or whenever deemed appropriate. But our community deserves, a thought as to what that would look like, so they know how we're trying to trend toward as we move forward. So,
Do you think we?
As I look at this plan, it is dated to be 2020, 2021.
Right.
So it has an end date.
Right.
I think the next question that the board has to deal with is, what is the 2021, 2022 plan, if there's any? And it may be a plan of contingencies that says we'll start here, and depending on what we see, we may have to shift to this. I don't know that. I'm just kind of putting perspective on it. That's kind of where we were with this. And that's what triggered the 2 weeks of virtual and then the 4 or 5 weeks of cohort. But I don't think this has to be drawn out to a long time. I think the quicker we can put something in place, the better. And I would expect we'll work really hard to have that out within a matter of weeks after school's done.
I just think we stand to lose a lot more than gain because the parents who wanted, like the parents who are worried have the option already for virtual. And I think we stand to lose more by not having a plan sooner because a year ago, parent choice was 55. This year, parent choice opt-out was 78 kids. Like, that's the wrong direction. And I think we stand to gain a lot more kids by having a plan that our community can get behind.
I would just caution you, there are also parents who believe the kids need to wear masks.
Yeah, and they can.
Whoa, just stop. I've received plenty of emails and comments from parents who say, I'm glad that they're masking. Just be respectful.
Really? I
You
haven't
have,
had one.
John,
Not one.
John, you don't have the floor. I respected your comments. I'm just asking you to listen to mine. Those parents have the same option of open enrolling someplace too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I think that's the challenge all districts are facing. It's not a this or that.
But they can do
It's a
RDA
real
right.
challenge to everybody to say, how do you keep kids safe? How do you give them as much rights as you can give them? And that's what we're gonna try to do. That's all we've ever tried to do. So I think it will be a relatively quick decision on our part, I hope. And I'm with Pete. We can get rid of masks, let's get rid of them.
I think we're gonna be working in a vastly different situation than we were last year. We're gonna be working in a situation of rapid decline, where last year it was very, very fluid. And I mean, my thought is that it's gonna be a positive outcome how we begin the year. But to make that decision today, now as far as open enrollment goes, people can go ahead and open enroll, and then they can change their mind. And so that's an option. As far as vouchers go, that ship has sailed. That happens in January. So that's not a question of whether somebody can go ahead and apply for a voucher at this time. They can't.
I just think we could really positively promote New London and being a leader, like some people mentioned. And like, I've been so happy with the school district, and we came from a school district where our kids were a little fish in a huge pond. And I think we have a lot to offer, and I don't know if we tell enough people that. Like, Hortonville gets all the love, and they didn't lose any kids, they stayed open. Same with Freedom, same with Wrightstown. I called Luxembourg Haskell, they were up 88 kids since Christmas. I called a whole bunch of school districts doing some homework this week. So I just feel like this would be one thing to encourage people to stay, because the first rule of marketing is to retain your current customers.
Those schools, those other districts you mentioned, Katie, those are districts that remained open all year.
Yeah, I called like 8 of them.
They're also all growing communities.
Right.
Every one of those areas. Freedom and Wrightstown are two of the fastest growing communities in our area right now. Hortonville continues to expand because of Grand Chute. That's not the only element that's driving their growth. They have grown for population sake.
She's just talking about open enrollment though.
I know
Right.
that, Chris, but
Like
they are
Luxembourg,
also
Casco,
growing.
go ahead.
I'd just like to thank Katie for doing that research. That is the coolest stuff.
I have a list at home.
That's the only way that we're gonna grow as a board, is by doing our own research and homework before the meeting. so that you can come in. Open that, pull that trigger on that shotgun, give us the information that you got.
And the reason Luxembourg Cass goes up so much is because Green Bay is a mess.
Right.
So we're in much better shape than that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I do think once they have them, they're probably not going back.
Right.
So it's a much more sustainable plan to keep your families and your kids than rely on like a couple of years of COVID stimulus money. Like, I think we have a huge opportunity to keep people and make them want to come here. Everyone's moving to a rural lifestyle, right? Nobody wants to be in the city. So I think we have a huge opportunity to market in London, and I don't want to see us miss that opportunity.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
Society is, they're done. They're done with this. And when are we gonna move on? When are we gonna start leading rather than just existing with fear? Because this has nothing to do with our kids. Our kids don't spread this. Let's quit putting the burden on our kids for our fears in society. Because it's not their burden to bear.
Any other discussion on this topic?
Yes.
Go ahead, Tina.
So I also did some research, and there's schools that are in the same boat that we are. All schools are. No one wants to make masks last longer. No one wants to do that. I don't want to do that. I think we've heard it clearly here. There's also been a variant that has come into light that is affecting more of our kids. I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea. We're kind of sitting where we were last year. We're thinking, okay, we're just gonna go back to school and we're gonna be good. Like, that's what I thought last year. Like, we're done. We were home all spring, and now we're just gonna go back to school. And that's what I was hoping, that's what I thought. And then look what happened. We were supposed to have graduation in July. Numbers went way up. We couldn't do that. Things just kind of kept rolling. I hope that doesn't happen. I really do. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that we can make a good decision that they can go back to school. But things are just, right now for me, in my personal opinion, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen in a month. I don't know. I don't think any of us know. And I am, here to say I don't want masks either. But I'm not willing at this point in time saying we're not going to have masks in August. I can't. I don't think I can. It's not fair. It's not fair for me to make that decision right now.
Chris?
Well, one thing that would help parents, even if we put off the survey till, another couple weeks, is if we make good decisions right now about what's going on. And I think we've heard enough here, and we've heard enough in all around us. One of the presenters pointed out that practically everything else is open up. I was even at the county building and visited Pete today. Counties open up. It's now optional to wear masks in county facilities. And so kids are going to school wearing a mask 7 hours, and then they're going, and if their parents are okay with it, they're going anywhere else. I don't know if anybody knows, Festival lifted the mask requirement. There's very little requirements left around. We look ridiculous to sit here and say, you still, when you come into a school building, even at a meeting with this, I'll be honest, I feel ridiculous sitting here with a mask on. And, I'm only doing it to follow policy, not because I think it's any good at all. When I'm out of here, it's coming off. And I think with that said, I'm going to make a motion that we make it optional beginning right away for the rest of the school year. That will telegraph to the parents that, hey, they're making good decisions now. They'll probably make good decisions later on. Because there's nothing anymore to point to. If I don't think masks were ever effective, but if they were effective, there's nothing anymore that makes them effective when the whole rest of society around us is without them.
This is the ones my husband brought home from work, and this is what I send my kids with and I wear. And it says right here, these masks help protect against dust, but do not eliminate exposure or the risk of contracting any disease or infection.
So anyway, I just made a motion, so somebody's
Oh,
got to
sorry.
second it.
I'll second it for options.
Okay. I think it's time. We're way past that.
And everyone can still wear a mask that wants to.
Absolutely.
We have a motion to make masking optional for schools. Motion was made by Chris, with a second by Katie. Any discussion?
I would just like to clarify one point with the county and stores. If you don't want to go to Festival Food for mask or no mask reasons, you can go to a different store. The county, for the most part, not everybody goes to the courthouse willingly, but it's also an optional thing that you can do. We're mandating people that have to come, kids have to come to school, and that's just one point I'd look at. The kids have to come here. Hundreds of kids have to come to the school. You know what I mean? And everybody wants face-to-face exposure for learning. So that's my only point of contention right now, is that we're forcing people to have to come to the building to get that first face-to-face.
They have virtual.
They have virtual, I get that.
My
but-
8-year-old, a teacher told my 8-year-old to go to virtual. If you can't wear your mask, go home and do virtual. My 8-year-old.
But Pete, they could still wear a mask, right? If they wanted to.
At school, yes,
Yeah.
if that's the motion.
I think they
Right.
could choose to wear a mask at any time.
So, some of the issue with that is, how are the teachers gonna know which parents want their kids to wear the mask? Because we have to look after the teachers too. We don't want them to be caught in the middle of an argument of a 7th grader who doesn't want to wear a mask, but the parents want them to wear the mask.
At Emmanuel,
So
you'll fill out.
how do we take
Oh, we
care
could
of
do
it?
that.
We did.
At Emmanuel, you fill out a parent consent and then we know.
You don't have to wear a mask.
But what if
that's
the
why I told
parents
my
want the
dad
kid to wear
Then
a
they
mask?
didn't give them the mask exemption.
So then,
You're stuck with it.
no, that's okay,
The kid's
that's a
stuck with
fix.
it. Yeah, the kid's stuck with
That's a
it.
fix that we can give instruction to our teacher, or to Scott, and then he disseminates that to the teachers. This is how we're gonna do this new rule.
I mean, it's an idea to solve that problem.
Right, and that's what we need to look at. We need to look at the blowback and potential problems from just saying, today's the day, There's always, we try to eliminate hurdles for our teachers, so all they gotta worry about is teaching. So that's what, if we address that,
It'd almost make it easier.
if
You know,
we
I
can
think
come
it's
up with
been
a
tough
fix
for
for
them.
that, so that the teachers aren't caught in the middle of a mass struggle between kids and parents, I think that could
I
be
think
okay.
you're gonna talk about very few parents that are gonna.
I don't want one parent getting.
Well, you already have the solution, and there it is. So we have that fixed.
So how are you gonna do that, John?
The same way Emmanuel did it. The very same way. And might I say that Emmanuel doesn't mask, and yet those kids get on our buses with our kids that had to mask all day. Where's the sense in that? That's like segregating out the M&Ms and sorting them by color, and then at the end of the day, throwing them all back in another bucket, shaking them up. What's the point?
So, Mark, you had a comment?
I just wanted to interject something into this conversation. Last week, the Luxembourg Casco School District voted to get rid of all of their COVID-19 protocols. They got so much pushback from the community that tonight they're having a special meeting to revisit that vote because they got so much pushback from people that didn't agree with that. So even if we make a decision on this tonight, I'm willing to bet, because this is an issue in society that is split right down the middle. I mean, and I believe that's the case. That's the case everywhere. So we could make a decision tonight, and I'm guessing that we're going to be sitting back here either next Monday night, sooner, or a little bit later, probably revisiting it again. I don't think this is as cut and dried as what some of you are presenting this as. I mean, you just look across the area, you look across the state, you look across the country. It is a 50-50 deal, you know? And I mean, I appreciate the people that come to our meetings that feel stronger about it than the people who haven't been coming to meetings that, because it's status quo, they're not going to show up.
It's
You know,
too bad.
So, but anyway, so it's food for thought as we're anticipating this vote.
So,
You and I had a discussion earlier today about Luxembourg Casco and some of the challenges they're facing right now beyond the community component. You want to elaborate on those a little
Sure,
bit?
so my news source is just that, it's via news, you know, so I have not had a conversation with a school employee from that district. But the news story was that districts that compete in co-curriculars against LC were choosing not to participate or compete against them for whatever reason due to that recommendation of not having any protocol within. So that's just a newsworthy point that was, all of us could see and watch the storyline on there that I saw earlier this afternoon.
And part of that comes down to just bad governance coming out of WIAA.
Well,
And we can't control that. On a board level, on a school district level, we are under their thumb. They set the rules to which the districts have to be under. That's not our fault. If they have bad governance, that's not on us.
Specifically for
But we will still feel the consequence of that, John. And we've been able to have all of our kids participate in our sports programs. Last year, we lost an entire half year. We're in spring, kids are in their programs. They're back to doing what they want to do now. Is it ideal for them because they're wearing a mask? Probably not. But we're able to do those things. We're able to have a prom this year that we got. We're 3 weeks from closing this year out. I don't see this making a huge impact on this year. And if we do change this, we find ourselves back here with a different group of parents who are on the other side of this equation. Do we just turn around then and go back the other way? Or do we finish this year and go into next year with a new vision on what we want to do? This has worked for us. We have been in school almost all this year. Now, we lost a lot of ground last year in a whole semester when suddenly somebody throws a light switch, says, you will all be virtual now. It wasn't this board. We just reacted to it. We took the state's guidance and said, okay, we're virtual. We weren't geared up for virtual at that time. We were better geared than many because at least we had Chromebooks for everybody. We didn't have outreach that we needed, but we learned a lot. And we had about 10% of our population, 11% stayed virtual this year, approximately, because they had a choice. That's going down next year from what we're seeing. We're 3 weeks away. I don't see us making a decision here tonight that's going to make anybody happier at the end of the day, because you might be happy, but I can tell you there are parents who aren't going to be happy. And now let me finish, please. You said, let me finish. You had the floor earlier. This is the board's time for the floor. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's how boards run. there was a comment made that we don't want bullying. So now we open it up to an option. Right now, all our kids wear masks, so nobody's being bullied because they're wearing masks. When we open it up to the option, do you think that kids will be bullied because they're in a mask or not? I do.
No,
I do.
That's normal.
It will happen. Yes, it will. Believe me, I've been here 20 years. It will happen.
Maybe
Maybe
So,
that's
maybe
a
not.
thought that we should have taken before we
John,
mandated.
that quote is sailed.
A long
We are
time ago
here.
by you.
We are here 3 weeks from school end.
You brought up graduation.
So,
We brought up
Go ahead.
graduation the last year and we lost it. No, we didn't have graduation in a normal sense last year. Not that we couldn't, we didn't. That was a misclarification. We didn't.
okay, John, you've had your piece. Tina?
Just looking at it by logistical, so if we are asking parents to say yes or no to whether they're gonna send their kids in masks, how long do you think that's gonna take us to get that information? If we quickly get it out tomorrow, we're gonna at least need a week, at least a week. And that brings us to the 18th. And then we have barely 2 weeks left of school. So I'm just saying, you know, there's not a lot of time left for, I know Katie, your child didn't get to do sports either last spring, and neither did mine. And I don't know. I don't know what would happen, but
Do you think there's anything we could propose that would be, I mean, he has a motion on the floor, but is there anything that would be agreeable that we could come up with? And maybe we wouldn't be the school that got rid of masks, but if you're in a place in a classroom where you can socially distance, can we tell the kids, hey, you could take it off except when you go talk to the
That's
teacher?
part of
No, but they're not doing it. No, because the kids think they can't.
Yeah, they're not following.
It's because in most classes, you can't social distance 6 feet.
But they could have a corner that they could go in.
Right.
Let's change it to 3 feet.
It's part of the current plan.
Yeah,
where it
it's
is
just not being enforced because my kids said they have to wear it all the time. But I just think, is there any movement that we could come to an agreement that maybe it's 3 feet and you can be in your class like when you're at a restaurant and your mask can come off, but then if you need to approach the teacher or if you're in the hallway, I mean, I just think we have to move on a little bit.
We did the last time,
Right.
didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna
And
put,
so-
and I applaud that. I'm not,
Right.
I don't wanna.
But we're at the end of this road right now, and now we want to say we'll move a little further. And I can guarantee you, it will not bring happiness to our world. Because there are a lot of people out here and I can tell you, having seen the emails, you're not on it, and you're not on it, Chris. And I can't tell you why, but you're not. Whatever reason that person chose not to send it to you. So I don't think we're gonna gain any real ground here going either way at this point. I don't see it.
Well, isn't the policy now that if you can social distance, you can take the mask off?
It is, that's correct.
And CDC policy is now 3 feet is social distancing. Why can't we make absolutely sure that the principals and the teachers are all aware of that so that these
They are.
kids get some.
They're part of the reentry plan, they're part of it.
But Katie, are they doing it?
No,
well-
my kids say they have to wear them all the time.
Are we going with the 6 foot or the 3 foot? Are the teachers under the impression that it's 6 feet, or can we reduce it to 3 feet so that the instructors can safely say, okay, you guys take your mask off. I know we're within a safe distance.
Sure. So the parameters are 6 feet, that's the number that's been part of our plan. If there's another number interjected into 3 feet, that's.
I'll make that motion to reduce.
We have a motion on the floor
Okay.
right now.
We got this motion first too.
And physically, I don't know if you can get 3 feet apart. Our classrooms are meant for one-on-many instruction. They're not built for this. That's part of the problem schools are facing.
That's this far,
No, that's
3
that
feet.
far.
3 feet.
It doesn't matter, John.
Well, it
Our
actually-
classes
it
aren't-
does.
John, our
It
classes aren't designed for 3 feet spacing. They're just not built for that, not with the number of kids in our classrooms. We have a motion on the floor. Any other comments on it?
Okay, I'm with you on not maybe upsetting the apple cart this second with graduation because I had a kid lose it. Could we revise it and say, we're finishing out the year, but parents, so you can plan next year, masks are optional next year. Can we make that decision right now?
Please.
No, because let's vote on this first.
Okay,
Unless you want to,
Well, I was trying to compromise.
unless you wanna amend Chris's motion, you can do that, and we can have some of that
I was
conversation.
trying to do a compromise
Right,
that
but
people can plan.
we have to deal with
Right.
Chris's motion right now, unless
The
you want
motion
to.
On the floor is to make masking optional in
I'll
all
second
schools.
yours. If you.
So should I amend it?
If you amend it, I'll second.
Or we can just clear this one off the table and start it.
Because
You know what?
as having a senior, I can acknowledge, I do not want to be the person that's responsible for losing graduation. I don't think it would come to that. It's outside of that.
Right.
But it is only 3 weeks and it sounds like a logistical nightmare to put teachers through this. But I think if we can give parents some light at the end of the tunnel and be, hey, it's nowhere near what we thought it was going to be for these kids. Our teachers are vaccinated. Maybe we amend the motion, like we're finishing out the year the way it is, but next year they're optional. You can still do a survey, but maybe it's not necessary to put that question in there.
Could we say that we could make that by the end of June? Could we put a timeline on it instead of saying that today at this meeting? Because I guess I'm not ready to, it's too soon for me to be making that decision today because I don't have a crystal ball.
Well, I don't either, but I just know a lot of people are making their decisions right now, and this is a big deal for families.
And to Mark's point, they can change that decision if they.
Right, they could, but they might not.
So
But they're also for sale.
before we go down another motion, we have one on the floor. Motion to make masking optional in all schools. Motion was made by Chris and seconded by Katie. Any other comments on that motion?
So can I amend the motion because it sounds like too much work for our teachers right now to do the,
It sounds to me like it probably would be more appropriate to word a whole different motion so that you can cover everything
Okay.
you want without.
can I do that?
After we do this.
After we do.
Oh, okay, so I'll vote this one down, is what you do?
We will vote this one down. Well,
We
That's
can't
not
tell you how to
necessary.
vote, Kate.
That's not
Right,
necessary.
right.
We will vote on it and then we'll see what happens. Katie.
I just think it,
I'd like to have a roll call vote on that.
That's fine. Roll call requested.
Pete Bosbus,
No.
Mark Grossman,
No,
John Heidemann,
Yes.
Chris Martensen,
Yes.
Tina Ruckbashel,
No,
Katie Batten,
yes.
Terry Wagner,
No. Now, Katie, if you want to make a different motion, would be the time to bring it forward.
Okay, thank you. I would like to make a motion for our families to plan that starting the next school year, masks are optional for each family.
I would second that.
And to speak to Tina's point, if there was some new disease and some new outbreak, we're not, we can make a new motion. You can make a motion and do something different. We're stating an intention right now with what we know right now. It's common to, something happened, a tornado happened and we had to change what we were gonna do with this building or something.
So there's a motion on the floor. Motion is beginning 2021-2022 school year, masks will be optional. That was
That's
made
for a roll
by
call.
Katie and John. Any discussion?
Would people on the board be open to amending that to say based on current trends with the understanding that catastrophic events may cause us to reevaluate.
Yeah, what would that be?
There could be a variant that could.
Yeah, some of the variants that are in Minnesota right now are affecting younger people and making them sicker and having to be hospitalized, and it's slowly moving this way. But it looks like we'll be out of school before it hits here, so all our kids will be dispersed anyways. So we may not get the spike that they're seeing. So, but if it does hit us way late and into the beginning of next school year, we may have another situation where we would have to take a look at it.
Well, maybe that's where, like with Chris said, we start a new motion and we cross that bridge. I would like mine to stay really clean so parents have something to look forward to, but it sounds like too much work for today.
It's a complicated issue.
It is. I think if you insert the word tentative in there based upon what
Current trends,
yeah, based upon current trends, everything is tentative, all right, because something could change. I mean, ideally, I'd love it to be tentative because come August 15th, we say you don't even have to, yes, it's still optional, but it's not required at all. I don't want to I've been on the board long enough to know, and it's only been 3 years, but I know that when you make motions like this, they tend to get chiseled in stone. And I'm all for what you're saying, Katie, but I'm not going to put something out there that people come back to us then in August and say, but you said this. Yeah, we did. But if we said tentatively, that's the plan going forward. I'm perfectly satisfied with that.
Terry, if masks were an effective way to combat this, your point would be well taken.
Well, that's where you and I disagree.
I think we're saying.
And the rest of the world.
I think that.
Is split on this 50-50.
We've seen enough things. Masking, I think, in this period of time, and later in time, people are gonna look back at this historical period, and they're gonna look on masks like we look on bloodletting from the 19th century and legions.
Well, we can't look to the future, can we?
Well,
it's
the word tentative, if I could, Chris, tentative. When I start my week, I'm tentative that if all goes well, I'm gonna get crops in the ground. It's very tentative that my dad will still be there on Tuesday morning.
Because that's the plan.
And won't pass away. That's the plan. But I don't need to put it in writing. I don't need to make a plan because life changes. Are we gonna start putting what if in front of everything we do and every policy we write down? What if? No, we're not. It's called life. And sooner or later, we need to move on and start living it.
Well, I'd like to
I'm
address Chris's mask take. I've had literally thousands of hours in masks, from everything from dust masks to N95 to gas masks to SCBA. I was an instructor for the Sheriff's Department for the gas masks and gas munitions. So the masks that we wear, they're inefficient, but they still help because the virus it's not airborne, it's droplet driven. So like if you cough or you talk or you sneeze, those droplets are what carry the virus. So as I'm talking here, that moisture is getting trapped in the mask. But some escape, but it's a lot less than if I didn't have a mask. So though they're not the most efficient form of protection, they do have an impact. So I just wanted to clarify that, and that's coming from literally
I have
thousands of hours of training.
Question for you, Pete, because you're seemingly a mask expert. Do they work good if you cut a hole in them? I mean, because that's the craziness that we had our kids do in order for them to perform in concerts, in order for them to perform in band. Have you ever played an instrument?
Yes, I have.
Do you know how much spit and how much stuff comes out the end of it? When we played trombone, you have to empty the spit valve. We're kidding ourselves here.
Let's go back to
I'm
previous
gonna bring
questions.
us back a little bit. The motion is beginning in 2022 school year, masks will be optional. The question that's been posed to this board has been, should this read just as it is and we, at some point, if required, reverse it? Or do we put in some phrasing that says, based on circumstances at that time, or as Mark had said, temporary? I can vouch for what Mark says, because once you make that statement, that's the statement they think you made forever. And I'm just gonna say, I don't know where any of you have heard that this board is considering mandating vaccines. Nothing is further from the truth. We have never, ever discussed mandating vaccines.
I didn't say mandate. I did not say mandate.
I didn't say you, Mary. I'm saying, I heard it several times tonight about mandating vaccines. That's never been a consideration.
Yeah.
But we will, at this point, have to move forward at some point, or we'll be qualifying for pay for the next day. So where are we at?
Terry,
Tina?
can we say something like, in the amend the motion, something like, we tentatively make the plan that Katie had talked about with, something like with more formal, direction, coming by end of June or something like that, something where we're, so that we have kind of the district, the admin, we all have some time to, yeah, I agree. Okay, we're planning on it. Here we are planning on it. But what is going to be, I don't think anybody knows today what is going to be our parameters. And if we want to make a statement that we would definitely consider this, but what is our parameters?
I don't think those have been defined as of yet.
Right.
I mean, that's part of what we're talking about. We've been talking about for the last quite a while.
So could we set a date?
If someone makes the motion to amend, you're gonna have to give me help in writing it, because right now it's a little bit squishy. Or do you choose to vote on the motion as presented?
I'll make a motion to amend the motion to say that based on current trends, this is the intention of the board to, if necessary, masking will be optional. With the understanding that under certain catastrophic circumstances, that may have to be reviewed.
Well, I think you kind of covered though that when you said based upon current standards, or current trends.
Let me see if I could have this correctly. So the proposed amendment to the motion would be motion based on current trends beginning in 2021, 2022 school year, masks will be optional. Is that correct?
That sounds.
I was just wondering, because that leaves so much to interpretation. Like, is it the trend of my grandma dying? No, because she's 96.
Well, I guess we could clean that up.
I think we should just say barring any catastrophe.
That's a little big too.
That's even more vague. I would rather it just says tentatively.
We could put COVID trends, so that's what everybody knows we're looking at.
Yeah, I meant like for youth and not like my grandma. You know what I mean? Because there's trends in Wapakakoni that don't affect my kids.
Right.
Okay.
Current school district trends?
We won't have any over the summer.
other
I would
than-
agree with
We're
Mark.
basing,
I would
but we're
agree.
making the decision based on
Right.
the current trends right now. That we're
Raise your-
Right.
raise your hand, Jeff.
Yeah, what was it?
I would like to see just what Mark said, that our tentative plan is to be mask optional
For the next school year, I'm
for
fine
the
with
next
that.
school year.
Is that my amended one then?
That seems to be
No,
the,
there was a motion made for an amendment that never received a second. We now have a different motion for amendment. Motion beginning in 2021-2022 school year. Our tentative plans will be to make masks optional.
I think that covers it. My amendment didn't receive a second, so I will second John's amendment.
So we have,
Did somebody draw this off the chalkboard?
Yep, get the whiteboard.
so we have a amended motion by, was it Pete?
That was
By
John,
Excuse me,
yeah, and I seconded it.
John and Pete, that states,
Name policy.
motion made beginning in 2021-2022 school year. Our tentative plans will be to make masks optional.
Pretty clean.
Any discussion?
I think we had it all.
Then shall we call the vote?
Chris, you wanted a roll call vote on that, or?
I don't think we need one.
Might as well.
That's a good idea.
Fine.
We're so decisive.
Well, it's consistent.
Has anybody,
It is.
has
Yeah.
somebody requested a roll call vote?
Chris, that.
Chris, did you request that?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure you.
If he doesn't, I
If you
will.
would please.
Mark Grossman,
Yes.
John Heidemann,
Yes.
Chris Martensen,
Yes,
Tina Reckdashel. Yes. Katie Batten,
Yes.
Pete Buskis,
Yes.
Terry Wagner.
Yes. Any other discussion on this topic? Moving along, we're now at review and approval of the 2021-2022 open enrollment.
oh, wait, I'm sorry, Terry, I do have more on this topic.
Uh-oh.
It was brought up that we had a clinic for teens in high school to administer the shots.
We had a clinic in our high school that served students or the community.
Right, okay. And
Is that on our agenda though?
it's in the reentry issue. My question is, I believe that should be a board decision. It's a very controversial vaccine, and it is not approved by FDA. I'm not saying I would have voted against having it, but I'm just saying that I don't think that's, I don't think that comes under our previous decisions. And I would like to, it's too late to do anything about it now, but I have two issues with it. One, when we do that in the future, I would like to see it, run by the board before it's okay. And number two, I've heard a bunch of stories out there that staff were kind of pushy on getting kids to sign up for this.
Did you
Can I
talk to any of the staff?
Certainly, ma'am.
Thanks for Chris for bringing that up. So the vaccine clinic that was provided for our staff almost a month ago now through Opaca County Department of Health Services, through our county consortium as we continue to move forward. The county requested assistance in pushing out the vaccinating opportunity for members within our generalized area, just as the Hortonville School District did for Outagamie County, several weeks ago as well. And just as I think Holman is, and just as many districts around the state, regardless of opinion of for or against the opportunity. But the opportunity specifically within Wapaka County, and last Friday was at Wapaka High School and other districts within our county, will have that same opportunity for students and families to consider with the information, with the consent form, with the Pfizer drug information which was presented and the fact sheets that go along, sharing that opportunity for them to consider voluntary family student decisions, creating an opportunity for students and families that see as that just an opportunity. Those that choose not to, by all means, not an opportunity. So, and then I had an email follow-up from that same thing about the pressure of staff or students, and I followed up with that in the communication back was, I don't have specific names because I agree, if there is a person that truly is pushing forward, that's inappropriate. Okay, and which would be dealt with and addressed on a timely fashion. So if you hear names or individuals, absolutely, that's something that I need to know so that I can act on, because it is inappropriate within the confines of where when we offer. But as a community service, as a community place where we are, the clinic itself was ran by the county. It was not ran by our district in the sense other than a place. They brought in their team of staff, nurses, healthcare professionals to facilitate and oversee the operation within. So we created a space opportunity and an avenue for them to communicate.
Go ahead.
Kitty.
I think where my husband went off the rails was the attachment that went to our kids that said,
From the county?
yes, it said,
Yeah.
help keep your family, friends, teammates, and school safe. And that's where it was like, this is undue pressure on these kids.
Yeah.
Like this attachment, I mean, all the kids got this. Owen showed it to me the second he got home. He's like, Mom, I feel like I'm obligated.
Yeah, that's
out of line.
It's a publication of the county.
I know, it just
Yes,
was on the
right,
email,
right.
and I think that's where
Right.
Pat went off the rails.
Sure,
Was this
sure.
part, because Owen was like,
Okay.
it's pressure, and we're taught to.
So the county was promoting this, apparently not very well. So we can talk with them, but the role of the district was really no different than we would for any other time the county would request use of our facilities. Unless it's in some violation of a policy, which this is not, we would say if we can be a public service, we would be so.
I think when it was the
Regarding
school
your
email.
question, Chris, did you have something to say, Pete?
Yeah, from the county level, the discussions I heard was that they were looking for places to have the clinic, lack of a better term, so that it would give people an opportunity, in this area, this side of Wapaka County, for a place to go and not have to go all the way to Wapaka or go to a medical facility because there's a bunch of rules there that they're not gonna let other people come in and give injections on a hospital site. So the county level discussions that I heard were just, we need a place to give people the opportunity to receive the vaccine if they want. I didn't hear or see any.
The attachments
Yeah,
were
I
went off
didn't
the
know
rails.
any of that because I would have jumped all
Yeah.
over that.
Because the kids all got the same memo, and it says teammates. I mean, that's not a
Yeah.
community thing. It says keep your teammates safe. Like that was out of line.
And I think, did you have your meeting yet with?
Tomorrow, or Wednesday.
That would probably be appropriate place.
Sure, give them the feedback on it, for
Yeah.
sure.
So my question is are there any other ones that are tentatively scheduled?
No, not at the current time, no.
And
Would, Chris, even if there was, we don't have a policy on this. As such, it's his discretion at
Yeah.
that point. Unless we create a policy,
It's simply my
he only
request.
follows policy.
Thanks for correcting that, but it would be my request that if you get another request from the county, throw it in your report and run it by us, so, we can make these, because I think probably we would have prevented something like that from going out had it been a topic of our last word.
I find it just strange that in this time when we've been limiting parents being able to attend things, limiting the amount of people coming into our buildings, supposedly under the idea of health. We open it up and let an unlimited amount of people from the community come in on this day. I just find that very strange.
The protocol upon entering, John, is the same as when a student or a guest comes in, they went through the same symptom check protocol before they came into the building. So if somebody would have been ill or whatnot, they would have not been able to participate in the clinic. So that protocol was in place.
Any other discussion on this topic tonight?
Well, it also gave our kids the opportunity to go get it that wanted it without missing school. Walked down the hallway, we all talked about how much time kids have been out of school, and gave an opportunity for that to happen.
I'm going to request, unless somebody has an urgent comment, that we move on to the next agenda item. Again, removal and approval of, or review and approval, excuse me, of the 2021-2022 open enrollment application.
Board members, in your packet are the preliminary numbers that were established from our open enrollment period, which concluded on April 30th. And highlight before I turn it over to Mr. Markwart, the district received 58 applications from residents to attend another district and 32 applications from non-residents to attend the school district of New London. Mr. Markwart.
Yes, good evening again. This is the annual time the board considers the open enrollment applications because it closes as of April 30th. Really, the nuts and bolts of what the board's action would be is for 58 applications out and 32 applications in. There are exceptions every year where families could, apply for different reasons. So really, the open enrollment period doesn't stop. There's a few notes that I wanted to share. The applications in do not exceed the thresholds that the board approved in January for seats in our programming.
Page 39.
Also, families are not required to reapply each year. However, many families do. Sometimes it might be because their child is going from an elementary school in one district to a middle school in another district, or middle school to high school, or family members just, they feel like they should apply. Maybe they're applying for multiple districts. So really, when we looked at the numbers and looked at the data, and Leslie Bayman pulled this information together for us, we have 5 new applicants, of the 58 applications, 5 of the students have attended New London Public Schools now. Where the other 58, either their siblings have attended another district via open enrollment and they're following that student, or they've never gone to the school district here before. And another item is people who move into the district and they want to attend the district that they are currently attending, they also apply as well. It's called tuition waiver, but really it's an open enrollment process. So one of the things the board talks about every year is, well, we have 210 students who are open enrolling out of the district. Does that mean we're gonna have 58 more students? No. Because 5 of them are new. Some of those 210 are just reapplying for the next year, even though they're already attending. And you have some students who've never attended the district anyway because they've moved in the district, they want to stay wherever they live. And then as far as the open enrollment into the district, there are 32 applicants. 14 of those 32 already attend the district as well. Many of our new applicants that are included in that number are to our 4K program into the district. So that said, going back to really what the board has to consider tonight is there are 58 applicants who are looking to open enroll out and 32 into the district. I just wanted to give some more context to that. That's questions that the board has asked in the past during these topic summaries.
So we have 5 leaving and 18 requesting to come.
Yes.
So this is one of the first years I remember on that positive.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask, how does it compare year to year?
Yeah.
This is the first year I recall. in that
Right,
process.
it's usually the other way around, that's why I thought it was just a late night. and the fact
It
that
can be though, very confusing to the community in that they see the 210 and they don't realize this is a rolling number that has built over a period of time. And to your point, many of these students haven't been here, won't be here. They've relocated, but they've returned to their existing school or their previous school.
Unfortunately, though, with that, with the students who do move into the district and they go away, it does look like we have more
Exactly.
open enrolled students out, but really, the data, the numbers don't always tell the whole story to that. So that's what we wanted to share.
Any questions or comments for Joe? Hearing none, we'll look for a motion to approve the open enrollment applications for 2021, 2022 as presented. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Tina. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to review and approval of the 2021 graduating seniors.
Board members, for your potential approval, the recommendation is of the class of 2021. Some noted items in the topic summary recognize that we are presenting students with anticipation of completing all academics and policies and expectations set forth by the board. Should we have students that don't fulfill that academic requirement expectation prior to commencement on the graduation evening, they will not be participating. But for reference, there is the list of individuals, approximately 170 individuals that are in the graduating senior class of 2021. Any questions?
Comments? Hearing none, we'll look for a motion to approve the 2021 graduating seniors as presented.
I'll second it.
John, seconded by Katie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried. Review of the graduation ceremony.
Board members, as well, information shared by Mr. Yerke this evening on graduation and the evening. The first thing I just want to point out is error in the time frame. Graduation is slated for 7 o'clock. In the documentation, it says 6 o'clock. So we'll note that graduation is at 7 o'clock at Bulldog Stadium. Board members wishing to participate in the commencement program are encouraged to do just that. Just please contact Jill Wilner according to the time frame within by May 24th. And if you are joining us on that evening, we will gather approximately around 6:15 by the press box area. And Mr. Yerke and I will see that you are in the places where you need to be on that great night. I highly encourage, if you are able to participate, to do so. Tomorrow, Mr. Yerke and I and others will be meeting for another session as we prep for the outdoor graduation. We're very excited about what we'll have to offer and the experience for our students and families on that evening. Mr. Yerke, is there any additional thoughts or questions you want to share?
Just a correction, graduation is at 6 o'clock.
It is 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Goes to
So when-
6:15.
So you want us
We'll need you
there
there at 5:15.
5:15.
Okay.
All right. 5:15.
Ceremony. We want to play the sun and the mosquitoes.
Okay, fair enough.
Point.
How many kids are they like? How many guests are they? Oh, nice.
So any questions? Now, times again are 6 o'clock is graduation, 5:15
Is arrival.
board as a board.
Correct.
If you choose to participate, I would encourage everyone to. Next subject is appointment of board committees. Everybody received the committees they requested. In many cases, there are no changes, particularly in the area of facilities and in the area of compensation. I think whenever we can, we try to keep that consistent because these are often ongoing scenarios. As we saw tonight going through ISMS, it's a process that goes over a period of time. We have a CISA rep. Tina has asked to be the CISA rep. which I will appoint her to this evening. And at this point in time, WASB delegates are Mark Grossman and then Chris is the alternative. So as I said, everybody received the appointments or the committees they requested to serve upon. So let's have a good year and get a lot accomplished if we can. Moving on to review and approval of the 2021-2022 official school newspaper.
Board members, annually, the board recognizes through motion and potential approval recognition of the local newspaper in which we choose to communicate various communications through our school, news and newspaper. Recommendation is to consider the Press Star be designated as our official school newspaper.
Any questions or comments?
I do, a couple of things that they've done in the last couple of years, less than wholesome. Not becoming of a paper. The way they've handled some of the election issues, very disappointing. And I know this is the voluntary thing, posting items in the Press Star. As far as our minutes, that actually doesn't have to be done.
Correct.
We do it voluntarily. I would make the motion we cease to do that. I disapprove wholeheartedly of some of the things they've done and taking and inserting a bias into what shouldn't be. And I would make the motion we study this and decide whether we really want to use them as our recommended newspaper in the future.
Do you notice they don't cover New London very well anymore?
They don't.
I know. Is there anything we can do about that? Like even our sports don't get covered that great.
They only cover us better than Appleton Press.
It's their editor. I've talked to him.
I
I
would
just wondered if
disagree
there's
with you,
anything we
Katie.
Yes.
They do not do a particularly good job of covering the things in our community, and yet we're the largest city in.
I know. Is there any, is that worth bringing up? Like it's, Iowa and Manawha get more.
Right.
Yeah,
No, it's their editor, because I have looked into it, Katie, it's been getting worse and
It
worse.
is
as
worse.
the- as
It's
the
worse
years
by
are
the
going
week.
on, and
So what happens? Do you post it online instead?
I would move we post it online or we discuss possibly just posting in the Post Crescent.
So are you making a motion to table this topic for this evening?
Is this like
I'm kind of wanting to hear what the rest
is
of
this
the
like a connection?
board wants or has opinion on.
I would, my
Going
observation
to bat
is,
for us?
Okay, let's.
my observation is when Scott Delisle left, we went downhill fast. Scott was very, on the ball. He came to most of our meetings and he covered things down the middle all the time. And he made an effort to get out as much as he could with the small budget that the small newspaper had. And he had a lot of local news in it. When he left, Bob Cloud took over and Johnny Purchet kind of assists him somewhat, but it's not, he doesn't get paid
Well,
much
if it's
for it.
fishing, we'll cover it.
no, it's just, you're right, Chris is dead on, he doesn't get paid much for it.
Right.
It does come down to Bob, and he's evidently decided that we're not newsworthy. And
And if you try contacting him, he doesn't respond most of the time.
I have gotten them to, but
Oh,
you're right, I have gotten them to, and that, so.
Do they stand to lose any, like, is it huge if we don't, like, what's?
No, it
No,
isn't.
we have other ways we can disseminate what we do.
Mhm.
But historically, it's been, one of them has been a local paper.
Mhm.
But if we choose not to approve this at this time, we can send a note that based on what we've seen of coverage, we at this point have not designated you as our official paper.
Yeah, I like that.
Whether that hurts him or not, I have no idea.
Terry?
Go ahead.
I think Katie had a good idea. Maybe we kick it to the Connections Committee and they can investigate a little deeper on the options and which is the best for us. Get the best bang for our buck.
Could we start with Terry's idea? Instead of,
Oh, absolutely.
we'll
Well,
put them
that's
on
how-
notice.
Yeah, that's how we table it,
Great.
basically.
And we're very interested in having him attend and tell us what he's going to do for us.
So in reference for future communications, then as the board approves monthly minutes from our regular meeting and special meeting, when formally approved, those minutes would then become part of our electronic communication as they're posted onto our webpage. So minutes to our community members would be a month out,
Right.
versus when some potential minutes, I guess it's always a month out when it goes to the paper anyways,
Oh, really? They are.
because they're
Yeah.
posted before they go. So that's just the webpage would be that primary
I'm
source.
guessing that's where the majority of people go and get
If they
their
want to go,
information
yeah,
on
I
the
mean,
minutes,
it's
you
easy
know.
process to go.
So,
But Terry, I do like your idea of like letting them know what we're thinking. I mean, they don't even cover, like New London won, or they had that big state wrestling tournament and like, I mean, you got like this much and then Manawa, some golfer gets, 6 on a hole. Like, we're not given fair coverage.
no, I do think it's not a bad thought on Pete's part to have the connection committee at least reach out to this gentleman. And we'd like to understand why we get so little coverage. I think that's a fair assessment. Tonight, we can choose just to table it.
Mhm.
Nobody makes the motion, it doesn't move forward.
In the meantime, you post it on the website then?
Yeah, it is already.
They've already
Oh, yeah.
posted that.
So we'll set the press star aside for now, since there's no motion to approve. Move on to review and approval of the 4K service agreements.
Board members, annually, the board recognizes the service agreements with our community 4K partnerships with the Daycare Center New London and our Head Start program. The contract is noted for review, itemizing the parameters of operations, location, staff.
Any changes to the contract?
Negative, no, basically the same.
So this has been ongoing now for how many years? Probably 10?
At least.
Since 4K, probably,
Yeah,
since 4K was established.
So, and it has always been a collaborative relationship with the existing providers of daycare that we work with them and meet our needs of our community.
To add just one note, the one change is we update the fee every year to increase. So last year was $2,034. So we increased it by 3% this year because our revenue limit increased by 3%. So we've historically done that to the reimbursement discussion. That was kind of how the board set up the original collaborative agreement, was based upon the revenue limit authority. So that's how we adjusted that annually.
So do we have a motion to approve the 4K service agreements as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is by
I'll
Pete,
second it, or
Go
get their
ahead.
hand up.
No, go ahead.
I'll second
Mark
it.
seconded. Do you like the roll call on this? No? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried. Moving on to the review and approval of the district depositories and individuals authorized to invest.
Again, board members, this is typically an annual decision where the board recognizes its depository partners within our district. Mark,
No changes at all from prior years. These are the same institutions that we've worked with. I put First Aid Bank, that's where the majority of our funding goes through. State of Wisconsin, local government investment pool. Sometimes we have transactions between state aid back and forth, so we have that. Community Foundation of the Fox Valley has our scholarship funds. BMO Harris Bank has our post-employment transactions. American Deposit Management Company has our Fund 46, long-term capital improvement fund. And Fox Cities Communities Credit Union has the Racing for Education.
and individuals to authorize are yourself and Mr. Black. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll look for a motion to approve of the district depositories and individuals authorized to invest as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Tina, seconded by Katie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Myself. One abstention.
One abstention. Thank you. Motion is carried. Update on the intermediate middle school project scope and walkthrough discussions.
So board members, this afternoon, we toured the intermediate middle school with the conceptual ideas with support from Ann Pinch and Assistant Principal Josh Bernane, as well as Joe, myself, and the Somerville architectural team. Within your topic summary, it's a storyline of where we are, where we've been, and potential parameters as we move forward. I hope that the walking tour tonight was beneficial to share some of the conceptual ideas to members and board members that were unable to attend tonight. I would encourage, if you have interest, to contact myself, and I could set up some time to take you through the building as well and share some of the highlights and planning of that. So as we move forward on our journey to address the needs of the middle school, we'll want to reflect back on that timeline that as a district we acknowledged several months ago. Overall, we're very much right where we should be, maybe just a smidgen behind on some of the schematic planning of where we are. I think we targeted the month of May of having that wrapped up, but we're very close within that. And tonight's feedback will help push that forward as we move to the next step. As well, within the documentation, there's information talking about the budget and funding that will support this project. Just at a high level overview before Mr. Markworth dives into it, when we look at our referendum that was passed in 2018 and project work and scope that's completed throughout our district, we have approximately $7.5 million remaining in our referendum funding to support improvements to our district, as well as noted operational funds that have been designated and assigned, whether it be through surplus funding and or budgeted funding to support the improvements through the intention of that referendum once it was passed. So tonight, from board members, we're just looking for your feedback. And the probable cost sheet is there. And Melanie, I believe, did a real nice job, as well as Ann, Josh, and Joe, talking about what that looks like and the approximate number as we move forward. So, Mr. Markworth.
Not too much more to add. Really, the focus tonight through the walkthrough came from the facilities committee discussion. After I shared the conceptual drawings and the opinion of probable cost, the board members on the committee said, we understand mechanical, we understand electrical, but we want to be able to see the architectural piece to that. So the committee really pushed that forward to say, hey, in order to talk about it more at the board level, having that walkthrough will really give that in-person opportunity to be able to look closer at the potential scope of work that the board can consider. And really, as we left the meeting over there tonight and walking over, it helps Somerville know the next steps once the board gives potential blessing of the scope of work. The board still is going to have full control. Just like the Parkview project, we would encourage the bid to be set up with a base bid, but then have alternates that fit in with that as well. So that way, if the cost ends up exceeding what the board is willing to expend, you don't have to go back and start at square one. You can use what the base project looks like, and then other things as alternates. And alternates, just like at Parkview, we had flooring structured there, we had some finishes, we had casework, we had full painting of classrooms. Those are things that you can include as alternates and really accomplish the main component of what the committee and the board feel are necessary moving forward for that project. I want to thank Ann and her staff for helping complete the themes of the document that we put in your packet. We had Somerville meet with their PLC group in the library a couple times, really to help develop what that scope of work could look like. That's really important when you look at the scope of that project, because there's a lot that is there that we either as administrative team members or the facilities committee can't always know ourselves. So involving the staff in that feedback was really helpful to ensure we try and keep the scope defined where it doesn't become, well, we'd really like this, or we'd really like to do that. There are definitely things in the building that we would really like to be able to do, but we just know we can't. Because it would involve adding on to the building and adding additional footprint that is there. This was really meant to target, the current structure of the building and that project work. One thing that I wanted to just make a note of with the budget and funding, that $7.5 million includes the debt payments that we have this year and next year for Parkview and Reedfield projects. If you were doing the math, you would say, well, we have this many years left, and we multiply that by 1.3 million, that would actually be 9.1, but we already have those debt payments. So that's why we put the 7.5 million that remain for project funds. And as we noted in that funding, it's a lot of the pieces that the board shared and really discussions here is we weren't solely relying on referendum dollars to complete project work. It was a combination of referendum dollars and operational dollars or operational savings to be able to put towards the significant project work. So with that, we looking for feedback from the board from either tonight or anything else.
Go ahead.
From the facilities committee point of view, or as I see it, like the electrical stuff and the mechanical stuff, most of that, you gotta do it. You just have to do it. Things are wearing out, and it's either wait till it breaks to replace it or get it done now. And I'm glad I went through the tour because now I can visualize what they're talking about, like getting cooperative classroom areas and more open concept in some places that give kids more responsibility. And so I can, when somebody tells me that, it doesn't sink in as much as if you're pointing to the room saying, this is what we're gonna do to that to make that happen. The one thing that really kind of took me off guard was the kitchen. If you haven't gone through the school for a while, go through, take a look at the kitchen.
It hasn't changed.
And try and tell me, well, there's another layer at least down there.
Yeah.
Try and tell me that those things don't have to be fixed. And the way that they're approaching it as some of it was safety concerns, some of it's just, hey, maybe we can move this around and to create a more efficient working place for the staff. And to me, that just jumped out as something, yeah, we gotta do something.
Joe, can you reference the potential funding for the kitchen versus other spaces that would be funded?
Yes, kitchen would not come from the general fund or operational dollars. That can come from food service fund balance that we have. And due to the meal program that we're eligible for with the free meals, we have grown a fund balance there. And one of the eligible expenditures for food service operational fund balance is this type of project. We had an email from the state earlier this year that our fund balance was a little too high in that. And when that happens, you have to have a plan to spend down. And I shared with them that our board was currently considering a project during the summer of 2022. And these are the type of things they would look at. And she said, yes, they would qualify as long as we follow the parameters for project work.
Katie, you were on the tour. Any thoughts?
No, but I know that the referendum passed because we voted for it, but Does this preempt anything from happening anywhere else? Like, were we talking at one time about like the tech ed at the high school updates and such?
Yep.
Like, does this rob Peter to pay Paul at all, or priority wise?
No, the way that we have the referendum set up, at least from my feeling, is we started with $21 million
Yep.
of potential project work. And through the discussions of the board, it ended up going to 13 million.
Yep.
And there were other items between the 13 and 21 million that it was either gonna come from operational funds, savings, grants, items throughout the operating budget that could be put in there. So I would say the answer is no, but I don't vote on the actual tech ed work.
Yeah.
So to me, it's part of the board's budget, regardless, if you decide that the tech ed has to be referendum or operational. But I would say from the meetings that I attended, that tech ed was more of an operational goal because of where it fit within the facility plan that was developed. It was on there, but it was more towards the tier 3 and 4 item.
So that's kicked down the road farther?
Well, I wouldn't say it
wasn't part of the referendum money.
yes.
Yeah, so
I mean,
that
that's
got
the
off, that
bottom
taken
line.
up, yeah.
It wasn't taken out.
Well, there's
In
down to
the- in the-
13,
in the-
yes.
in the- well, that didn't help.
Yeah.
But when you looked at the core items that we were focusing on, that was not one of them.
I just wondered if
And
based
so-
on like how she was saying, how they were redoing that wood shop and how that was a trend to come, like, is that worth spending any more time on like the way STEM is going? And, you know, every auto shop you pass, they can't find people. Like, I thought maybe New London could maybe be known as a good trade school, like our youth apprentices, you know?
Well, in the committee, we're still talking about getting the tech ed up to industry standards,
Right.
current industry standards. So we're
Right.
still looking at that,
Right.
and it's still on the radar. I don't know if kicking it down the road is the appropriate term, but it's in line.
At our facilities meeting this Thursday, I believe that is an agenda item with slated items of potential work this summer to address that area and what we're recommending for consideration.
I was just trying to
Yep.
go with the trends of like getting our kids ready, and that seems like an urgent, you know,
Sure.
need.
Walking through the building today. I mean, I've been in that building a lot. I didn't go to school here, but it's very obvious that that building hasn't been touched in a long, long time. I mean, in 1999, we added those 4 classrooms to it. And we did a couple of things, but the core structure, the ceilings, I mean, that building is 1969 still. And it is due for a major renovation, and it's gonna give us a lot of years of life. And I agree, that team did a really good job of looking at how can we take what we have and basically build another intermediate school and middle school within those 4 walls. And yeah, it's more than what we were figuring on, but there was a lot more stuff that came out of this. And I also agree with you, Pete, that, I mean, anything to do with like the heating and air conditioning, the electrical and stuff like that, if we didn't have this referendum, we'd be talking about all that stuff across the street. One way or another, you know, so.
I do think in the walk through the day, it was very helpful, and I would encourage any board member, if you weren't able to make tonight, take the time to get a walkthrough. You certainly met the themes that you put forward in the planning process. I think all of them were met. And I do think at the end of the day, as we move forward, it will be a much higher functioning school as a space for students and staff, but it meets the needs of all of our kids, all of our children in that. Nobody was left out in the planning process, which I thought was wonderful, and it's going to make a lot better use of the space we have than we are currently, largely because to make that happen, it's going to take this type of an investment. So it was certainly worth the time to walk through tonight, I thought. I think one of the things would be great is how do we package that to share with our community so they have a better sense of what we're doing and why we're doing it and how that makes for a better school. And in doing that, we also, to Katie's point, we now have a tool to market the fact that we are a system investing in our children and in our facilities. So, any other thoughts?
Just commenting on Katie's discussion of tech ed. Yeah, we have the plans to improve what's there, and Brian is pretty good at explaining what exactly they want to do. But I think ESSER funds is a great place to look at expansion of the footprint there in the space. It is totally right up the alley of ESSER funds. It's called the Carl Perkins Act, and it's right in there. So just a thought.
We will leave the first cut of that to facilities. You guys have been, people have been in reviewing it. You bring us back what your thoughts are.
So then just to tie this up a little bit, did any of the board members want the facilities committee to discuss anything in particular later this week about the potential scope of work, opinion, and probable cost, or should we continue to move forward and bring updates to the board as necessary?
I think we need to move forward.
You know, based on the question I asked tonight about what we did with Parkview, and we tried to squeeze it in 3 months, it probably was more like 5, and maybe a few weeks plus. This is twice the size building with a lot of the same challenges, ceiling, floors, room reorganization. I would say go. The longer we wait, the further we get into the bidding process, the more difficult it'll be to get the bids we're hoping for.
You can't get into wheels.
What is our time frame, just to verify that, on that project?
So what we would like to do, John, is to come forward now with more of a scope of what this will look like. And then our ultimate goal is to have bids go out in that early fall range. So we could hit the ground running early fall, prior board approval before going to bid, and then test the market as to where the numbers come in. And I think, Joe, you hit on a very optimum point of if we do set aside options within our bidding process. So maybe that's something our facility committee looks at. If we had to prioritize, say like the flooring package or the paint, or something like that, as far as additional bids to break it out if costs do come in at an accelerated number. So this fall.
Well, it sounds like the kitchen you might be able to cover somewhere else, right? Yeah.
I think the timing with sending that out to bid in the fall might be very good. Yes, that was, Terry kind of alluded to that at the meeting, where if we can send it out in the fall and get some approval, maybe we could start some work as early as the Christmas break next year, maybe even do some work over the spring break, and then, maybe even some other work, just because, as you mentioned, that trying to squeeze that timeline might be difficult, and that just, we'll keep talking about the timeline.
When she said 6+ months, I immediately went to 9 months. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's got to be done over there, and it's so much bigger than what we did at
I just
Parkview.
deliberately crossed myself.
Well, yeah, I hate
But it is, the
It
scope
is.
of that work,
yeah.
especially when we start taking floors more than ceilings. To me, ceilings go in pretty quick. Floors are a lot of work, as we found out. So, so any other comments? Hearing none. At this point, the board will look for a motion to move into closed session pursuant to section 19.85(1)C of Wisconsin statutes. The Board of Education will convene a closed session to discuss the continuing employment of certified support staff members for which the board has jurisdiction and exercises responsibility. Additionally, pursuant to section 19.851(C) Wisconsin statutes, the Board of Education will convene a closed session to discuss the employment and compensation of summer school staff members for which the board has jurisdiction and exercises responsibility. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Pete, do we have a second?
Second.
Tina, roll call, please.
John Heideman,
Yes.
Chris Martenson,
Yes.
Tina Rockdashel,
Yes.
Katie Benton,
Yes.
Pete Vasquez,
Yes.
Mark Grossman,
Yes.
Terry Wagner.
Yes, the board is now in closed session.